Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Allincrypto here, and today we are going to be covering a very important topic when it comes to cryptocurrency, and that is decentralization. And actually, in this video, we're going to be looking at decentralization in regards to Hedera Hashgraph Hbar, Hedera. One of the main criticisms that is levied against Hedera is the fact that people think it's not decentralized. Whereas actually, I think that this comment is applicable in some cases, but in not all of them. And people pick and choose when it comes to decentralization. And what I want to do in this video is play some of the recording from a recent Discord meeting where Lehman Bard himself actually turned up to cover this exact topic. And I think that an understanding that if you look at Bitcoin and these sort of decentralized layer one systems, Hedera has done things almost back to front in regards to how Bitcoin launched. Bitcoin launched and it went straight to the public and said, look, you guys can all spin up and start to mine and partake and be a node in the network. And what Hedera has done, and that's very decentralized, anyone can partake, so on and so forth. What Hedera has done is said, let's not launch in that kind of a manner. Let's launch with just ourselves and the 5 council members that started, and then expand the governing council that they want to consist of some of the largest institutions in the world. They already have some of the largest players in the world consenting the network, and then expand to permissioned community nodes, and then everyone, permissionless nodes, so that you could basically do what you can do with Bitcoin in regards to consenting the network. And from that point of view, I think that right now, you could definitely argue that it is more centralized than other players in some areas, i.e. the fact that there's only 29 people that actually run nodes. But the node spread in terms of servers is actually far greater than a lot of proof-of-stake blockchains out there that have over 25% of their servers on Amazon alone. And then the same people that will like that chain but not Hedera will call Hedera centralized because of the involvement in institutions, even though actually 25% of your network runs on Amazon servers. There's a lot of blockchains out there, or we know the Ethereum proof of stake situation. So Hedera for me, and I get the comment, is more centralized in regards to the number of players that actually consent the network and potentially the nature of them being institutions. But it is sufficiently decentralized to do what it needs to do, and has a clear roadmap that we're going to be getting into in regards to becoming ultimately decentralized and permissionless. So let's dive into it, guys. What I want to do is play the opening clip from Lehman, actually introducing this topic of decentralization, what the requirements are, and then we'll look at actually decentralization of the nodes, decentralization of the governance, and of course the distribution of Hedera. And the governance he actually puts very high importance to, and I think that that is so underrated, governance, when it comes to blockchains, because it's a core part of what these decentralized systems are trying to do. So let's get into it, guys. Let's start with clip number 1.
At the very beginning of Hedera in 2018, we've said that we have this path, that we are going to decentralization. You know, we started off with just 5 council members, which wasn't as decentralized as you'd want, and we just been on this path, and it's been going very well on this path. And so let me kind of give you an update and tell you where we're headed. We want to have decentralization. What does that mean? It means really 4 things. So we want to have decentralized governance, so more than 5 council members. We want to have a lot, 29 today. We want to have network utility. This has to be a network that is useful to people and that real people are building real things on it, using it for real things. Right now we're the most used in the world, which is kind of nice. The currency distribution. If all of the HBARs are held by Hedera and Hedera stakes, then Hedera kind of controls it. But now more than 2/3, I think, of the HBARs have been released. And so we have distributed the currency. And then distributed nodes. So we have the council nodes. As we've grown the council, the number of council nodes has grown. The next step is community nodes. And then the next step after that is permissionless nodes. So community nodes means permissioned, but more than just the council. And then permissionless is everybody. So this is the goal, is to be doing all of those things. Oh, there we go. Now I can see the chat too. And if you have any questions, you can put them in chat. Maybe I'll answer them while I'm talking, because I'm easily distracted. But I will also give questions at the end. Cool. Sometimes DeFi, you get interrupted. Okay, yeah. So I think I'm now working correctly. So let's talk about these things. So Hashgraph, Hedera is built on Hashgraph, and Hashgraph is different from, say, proof of work blockchains. And it's also even different from some of the other blockchains that aren't proof of work. People are very kind. So if you have proof of work, you have a chain of blocks, and you have to solve really hard math problems and burn lots of electricity to put the next block on. Other ledgers do it other ways. It might pseudo-randomly choose who the leader will be to put on the next block. Or it might be that they take turns being the leader who puts on the next block. Hashgraph is different. You never have a leader, not even for a moment, not even instantaneously. There's never a choice of who is the leader to put on the next. It's the equivalent of every single validator node creating 10 blocks a second, and could even go higher in the future. At the same time, no taking turns, no coordination, just everybody is blasting out blocks as fast as they can. And then, because each of these blocks is an event that has 2 hashes in it, remembering the last one you created and the last one you received, when everybody collects all of these blocks, you just have a big pile of them, but those 2 hashes let you put them together like puzzle pieces, and you build a hash graph. And the hash graph then allows everyone to just look at the hash graph and know the order. There's no leader, there's no one choosing the order. We all just look at the hash graph, and then every node knows the order, and the math proof is that we'll all have the same answer. So there's no communication whatsoever about the order, there's no leader, we just do that. So this is why Hashgraph is so fast, and that which then makes it inexpensive. It's also why it's so secure. So it's ABFT. It's a pile of blocks rather than a line of blocks. I like that. Yes. You have a picture of a tree that's kind of cool. I should bring that in sometime too. Oh yes, fire on that. I love that. So that is how the Hashgraph algorithm works. Hedera, of course, is a whole stack of things. That's at the bottom.
So now that I thought that was a great introduction, let's move on to the actual nodes and hear Lehman Bard's take on this. Because, of course, the nodes, this is why people call Hedera centralized. Let's look at what Lehman actually has to say on this.
Then we want to know, what about the mainnet nodes? Will we consider them to be decentralized? So I'll say, actually, the algorithm is more decentralized than anything. You never have any leaders. That's the most decentralized way of picking a leader, is to not have a leader. So that's kind of cool, very decentralized at that layer. But that's not usually what we talk about for decentralization. For the nodes, how do we get the nodes decentralized? Well, the ultimate decentralization of nodes is when it's permissionless. Everyone on Earth is running nodes, they're running them anonymously, there's a lot of them. So that is the, and it is an ordered pile of blocks. Yeah, the whole point of Hashgraph is you have this random unordered pile of blocks, and then everyone can look at it, and then in their mind, they put them in a line in a nice order, and everybody gets the same order. I love that, which is really cool. So it's totally chaotic and disordered. Have to talk with each other about how to put them in order. Okay. So the decentralization of the nodes will be fully complete when we have permissionless nodes and everybody's running nodes. But of course, to do permissionless, you have to have a way to make it, to avoid Sybil attacks. You don't want one person to create 1 million nodes and dominate the network and do bad things. So instead, what you do is you have proof of stake. And then the stake means that the H bars need to be widely distributed and that there's no big concentrations. You maybe need a good market cap for them all so that one bad guy couldn't buy them all, or at least an efficient market so that if one bad guy tried to buy them all, the price would go up and stop them as they were trying to corner the market. So this is what you need for fully decentralized nodes. Today we have 29 nodes. They're on different continents. We ensure that we don't have all the nodes running on Amazon or all the nodes running on Google. They're spread out. We do that. We ensure that they're in different data centers to a great degree. We ensure they're on different continents to a great degree. Every continent except Antarctica. And so the nodes are very decentralized in that way. 29 is a pretty good number. A third of that is, more than a dozen. So it takes more than a dozen nodes to be compromised to hurt the network. But to be fully decentralized, we're on the path to add even more nodes that aren't council members, and then to add even more and more nodes that are permissionless. That's the path that we're on.
So there we have him talking about decentralization in regards to how it currently sits. And of course, we know the plan is to get to a point where anybody, just like anyone, can consent Cardano or Bitcoin or Ethereum, theoretically, although there's quite a high barrier to entry to actually becoming a node with the amount of Ethereum that you need for most people anyway, and they're looking to up that even more so. There is definitely areas of decentralization and a clear path for further decentralization. And I think it's a fair comment, although I think it's a misunderstood one, to call Hedera centralized, because it's clearly decentralized in many ways. Now let's move on to governance, which is a very important topic, and then we're going to talk about the actual Hbar token. and then we'll wrap the video up. I just absolutely had to share this Discord meeting.
Decentralized governance on this slide. Good question as we get to the slide. So, decentralized governance, I think this is the biggest problem that everyone in the world needs to be doing, and they're not. You can say we're going to be decentralized, and then what ends up happening is that the power gets grabbed by a handful of people, and maybe theoretically anybody could have power, but they end up with all the power, and then they govern, and maybe you don't know who they are, maybe they don't have reputations they care about. You know, give them $1 million, they'll compromise their reputation. That's a problem. And so the plan from the beginning for the council was to not do that. We want to have a council that is distributed in geography and industry and time, and whether they're a company or a school or whatever, all of those different things. And so we have them separated. Do they follow what Swirls tells them to do? Absolutely not. Even when we only had 5 council members, they were not doing what Swirls tells them to do. And today that's even more true. We have 29 council members that are very, very engaged, and they each have an equal vote, and they each decide what to do. There are committees, and they are on these committees, and the committees are talking about what to do. The council meets every month by Zoom, and then frequently meets in person even now. So we have a very decentralized governance council. And I would say the only thing that has changed is that in 2018, we had the vision for what it needs to look like. And now that has actually happened. Decentralized governance on this slide. Good question as against the slide. So, decentralized governance, I think this is the biggest problem that everyone in the world needs to be doing. And they're not. You can say we're going to be decentralized, and then what ends up happening is that the power gets grabbed by a handful of people. And maybe theoretically, everyone.
And there you have it. Like I say, I think governance is something that's very important, but people don't really care about it. However, in some blockchains, for example, like Algorand, you actually get rewarded very handsomely for taking part in the governance, and maybe economic incentives are somewhat a reason, but they're also not, because I've asked a number of people that have actually built distributed ledgers and have come up and wondered how to go about tokenomics. What you almost incentivize is people just taking part and not actually really having any underlying interest on the votes that they're doing. They just want to do it for the incentive. Let's look at the Hbar token, and then let's wrap the video up.
Hbars are the fuel for the network. You use them to pay for transactions, but they also protect the network because it's proof of stake. And so this has been staked from the people. We now have staking. We didn't have that in 2018, but now everybody can stake, and lots of people are staking. I would encourage you to stake. The nodes are spread around the world, but when we go to community nodes, there'll be more, and then we go to permissionless, there'll be even more. All right, what is the role of Hedera in FedNow service?
So just a short one on the actual token, but I thought this was a really important video to share because I think there's lots of misconceptions, and it usually comes out about as a result of people not actually doing the due diligence for themselves. But there is a clear path for Hedera, and we really like Hedera as a institutional enterprise grade blockchain. We think it's going to do very well in that department. We're already seeing real world use cases on top of it, and we think that that's only going to grow, certainly as blockchain becomes more and more of a thing, distributed ledger becomes more and more of a thing. And certainly once you've got that regulatory clarity, you know, this space is set to soar, and I think Hedera is going to be a big part of that. That's all I've got for you in this video, guys. If you enjoyed the content, a like is appreciated, so as a comment, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next.